So, in this second part, time will fly, time is flying, we have plenty of things to see. We are going in a nice speed. Let me just go back to the, is it working? Do you have the sound? Thank you. Go back to the Immaculate issue. I find, as a theologian, the presence, insistence from heaven on the Immaculate Conception very intriguing, very, how can I put it? Surprising. Surprising because in the beginning we don't know, we want to understand. Why the Immaculate Conception? Why, for instance, declaring a dogma in 1854, Pius X, while you know that the context is very difficult. We have waves of revolutions. The first is the French one, and remember, this is very important for you to understand. In Europe, the French Revolution is not a local event. It happens in France, but it has echoes, it resonates in different countries around. Germany, Austria, Italy, Spain. So the ideas and the ideals of the French Revolution spread very quickly and generate turmoil elsewhere. Now, the question I ask myself, what is the connection between Immaculate Conception? Why the Immaculate Conception? It can be any other dogma. Why this dogma? Why is it coming back? Why is it that important? I mean, a bit of humility, no? To ask, why? No, I don't know, I don't understand. Help me. Why is it, from God's perspective, important, central, to help us pay attention to this aspect of the mystery of God, the mystery of Our Lady, the mystery of the providence of God, the mystery of the Immaculate Conception? Now, let me give you one piece of, extra piece of history, which is the context of the declaration of the dogma. And then we'll come back to the apparitions, and then I will start to dig then deeper in the understanding of the Immaculate Conception. So as I said earlier on, I followed many years ago a seminar on the Immaculate Conception. You know, it was rather dogma history, but not this history, another history, the more theological history. You see, like from where it comes, who believed in it, etc. But the historical context wasn't very much present, or at least I wasn't paying attention. Maybe it was there and I haven't paid attention. But let me then give you the context. Pius IX is the longest pontificate in modern history. He is Pope from 1846 till 1878. Pius IX. Pius IX. Pius IX. 1846, 1878. The longest pontificate. He was Pope, elected Pope, at the age of 54. Makes me old. And he was a priest, he wasn't even a bishop. So he was ordained bishop after when he was chosen, discreetly. You can be a cardinal and not be a bishop. You can be even a deacon and a cardinal, that's possible. Or a lay person and a cardinal, it's possible. Technically possible, because a cardinal is just a close person to the Pope. Now, when he takes power, responsibility, we need to understand what is happening. Few years before him, very shortly, right after the French Revolution, remember the French Revolution, right after it you have Napoleon. And Napoleon is not an easy guy. He will inflict a lot of damage to the entire Europe. I say that because I visited Italy and Spain and I heard Italians and Spanish complaining about Napoleon, even though I'm French. So I should be with Napoleon. I have to be fair in history. Both Italians and Spanish complained, and they are right, because he damaged a lot as well. But we're not dealing with that now. We want to understand what happened. So a little bit of time after the French Revolution, I think it's around 1799, the then Pope, Pius VI, sorry, I'm jumping a little bit behind, to explain to you the situation, was taken in exile out of Rome by the French. So when you say it's the apocalypse now and it's the end of the world, no, my dear friends, the apocalypse did happen before as well, many times, not only once. He was taken and he died in Valence in France, which is a little bit south from Lyon, east, central, south, sort of southeast in France. Why? Because the Pope opposed some elements of the French Revolution. And I want you to remember something very important. The Pope has a state. The Pope has land. The Pope is as well a king. And he has the pontifical state. And the pontifical state covers Rome, goes south till a bit before Gaeta, which is a almost mid-distance between Rome and Naples. And then you go up east to San Marino, even to Bologna. So the pontifical state is inherited from the Middle Ages system, where the Pope needed to exercise his freedom a bit of land. Today, we have the same concept. The Pope needs a bit of freedom in order to exercise his ministry. But this piece of land is simply more reduced, and it's just the State of Vatican and some buildings around in Rome. But at that time, remember, we had Christianity everywhere in Europe. It was the system everywhere. It was together political and faith and religious. So the Pope had a bit of land. Seen from us today, it looks very odd, it looks unacceptable maybe to some, etc., but that was the reality. So the Pope was head of state, if you want, and he's still today head of state, you want it or not. He has diplomacy. They work for peace as well. It's an act of charity as well to work and help for peace with using all your connections and networking. But today it's very reduced, but quite spread. The diplomacy, or you have all the embassies. The embassies have a double function. You have a political function, you are head of the state, so you have your ambassador, but as well you have the ambassador who is helping in the local church. So you always have these two aspects. The only thing is that today is very reduced. But when we are in the French Revolution, if you look at the map, the pontifical estate is a bit bigger than just the Vatican. It covers maybe less than a quarter of Italy. Less than a quarter, 20% maybe of Italy is covered by the pontifical estate. So of course you have powers. Powers below him in the south, which is the reign of the two Sicilies, and then you have other reigns above. And then you have Austria and Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So the Pope opposes the revolution, because the revolution does what? Removes the heads. And he's a head. Do you understand the problem? This problem starts with the French Revolution. Pope Pius VI, a little bit after the French Revolution, is taken away, and dies of exhaustion in Valence in France, which is horrendous when you think about it. What is this treatment he received from the French? Not glorious. But then the idea continues. So you overthrow kings, then you have a movement of restoration. Few years after, I think it's 1812, you have the restoration. So all the kings come back again, and you have a meeting in Vienna with all the aristocracy and the kings and ambassadors and the ministers. They have an agreement in Vienna where all the kings will come back and reign again, all the successors. But this has conditions, and you start to see that the kings are starting to sort of allow things to happen, a little bit like parents at home when the girl or the boy are becoming teenager. You start to sort of adjust. You understand that you don't have full power, you can't control everything, so you start to sort of compromise in a good way. So the Pope starts to compromise with the reality, but it's not easy. So when Pope Pius Pius IX arrives in, starts to reign, it's after the Restoration. It's after the Restoration. So overthrown, Restoration, agreement in Vienna 1812, then he comes there, he's elected in 1846. You have a revolution in 1830 in France, another movement of turmoil in Paris. The Archbishop of Paris is killed. Two or three archbishops in France throughout this century are killed. So it's not really the end of the world today, no? It was the end of the world before. So what I'm trying to show you now is what? Is the situation with Pius IX. He gives an amnesty to some prisoners, political prisoners, like you would do when you start to become a president. You have an amnesty, you call it? Amnesty? So prisoners will come out. These were revolutionaries. And these are the ones who will cause problems for him. He starts to have problems already from 1847. 1848, January, troubles and troubles and troubles. The Italians want the Pope to abdicate his reign as a king, not as a Pope. You understand the difference? The Pope has two identities here. He's the head of a state, he's a king, and in the same time he is the head of the church. He has two functions at least. So the Italians, liberal Italians, it's called like that. Nothing to do with what we understand about being liberal today. Liberal is a completely different concept. The liberal Italians, revolutionaries, inspired by the French Revolution and inspired by the time, no? It's about time, no? To rise. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them are now against the Pope. We reach November 1848. The Pope is trying to find a way to remain, but to sort of compromise by allowing the people to govern, to take part in the government a little bit more. You had it already. There were lay people governing with the Pope. The Prime Minister at that time was I hope I'm not wrong, he was a lay person. What happens? He's Prime Minister in November, don't remember the date, 22nd I think, or something like that, is killed. The cannons, you could hear apparently bullets shot entering in the room of the Pope. He was in the Quirinale, no? He wasn't in St. Peter where he is now. Huh? He was in the Palazzo Quirinale. It's today, it's the president, if I'm not wrong, in Italy, who lives there. So he feared for his life, and another person was there. One of his close collaborators, a priest, was killed as well. You understand what is happening? What does the Pope do? He flees. He disappears from Rome, disguised in lay garments, as a preceptor of one of the princes who came on purpose with his wife to take him and travel, as if it was a touristical thing. So he had to hide in order to escape from Rome and go to Gaeta. Gaeta, you go south on the sea. You see where is Rome? You see where is Rome? Say Rome is here. So I'm not good for drawing Italy, so say this is Rome. It's a bit too high, but anyway, this is Rome. So you have Naples here. Sorry, Naples. Gaeta is more or less here. But the difference, why he goes to Gaeta? Because the border between the pontifical state and a reign of the two Sicilies that is united with the Austro-Hungarian Empire are connected, so he is safe there. The prince receives him there and nobody can touch him. You have guards who can stop you from entering the reign. No? You enter in a different country. You're entering in a different... Italy is divided at that time, you need to remember. It's not the one Italy we have today. This is before the sort of rising of the Italians, called the Risorgimento, no? Before that. Okay? So, this is, my dear friends, the context that precedes the declaration of the Immaculate Conception. In 1847, you have a cardinal, or a theologian, sorry, not he was cardinal theologian, I think, who presented to the Pope a project to declare Mary Immaculate. So these are the early seeds. The Pope himself, when he was young, used always to say a prayer where the Immaculate Mother is mentioned. In all his documents, in the end, he mentions her, before and after the declaration. He had a great devotion to her. But what happens in Gaeta is interesting. This is a sort of a tradition transmitted. I have been there, I went to this chapel there. This is a crypt, which is a chapel underneath the main church in Gaeta itself, very close to the sea. And in this chapel, it's called a chapel, Golden Chapel, Cappella di Oro, very small. You have a lot of, the paintings are decorated with the gold leaves. Yes, thank you very much. Gold leaves. Very small, beautiful chapel. So according to the tradition, he prayed there for 9 months. So November, end of November till August. He doesn't come back to Rome immediately. There is a journey before. He goes down south to Naples, and then it's only in 1850 when he comes back to Rome. But he finishes his stay in Gaeta after 9 months. And it is said that it is in this chapel that he has the light confirmation, the drive to declare Our Lady Immaculate Conception. Now, remember the context. He's fearing for his life. He could be killed. They killed his prime minister. Bullets are entering in his room. One of his close collaborators, like a secretary, was killed. He is changing his clothes in order not to be recognized as Pope when he's traveling. Otherwise, they would stop him, the Republicans. They would stop him, and I don't know what they would do with him. Another one, Pius VI, and another one as well, were very badly treated by Republicans, but they were French, but they're Republican. They belong to the new system, no? Not the king's system. You understand what is happening? So, he is in Gaeta. You could read what he writes. There are different letters. Some of them are important, official letters. Some of them are just letters. Very interesting to see how he understands the situation, how he is trying to manage Rome from Gaeta, but most importantly, what he feels about the church, etc. We don't have more information, but personally, I find intriguing the fact that he feels compelled to start the journey of declaring Mary Immaculate Conception, because this is a long journey, by the way. The church doesn't do things like that. You have to consult all the bishops of the world. You have to consult all the universities, the major universities in the world. You have to have a good file to support the action. People think that, yeah, the Pope woke up one day in the morning very peaceful in his bed and said, oh, I think that would be a good idea to declare Mary Immaculate Conception. Which would be In a way, yes, an abuse of power or fancy things you don't understand. It doesn't happen this way at all. So when you see now the historical context, the pressure he is undergoing, his perception of what is happening to the church, and the disappearance of the order that preceded. You need to understand that. The medieval order, where you had kings, emperors, and he is a king as well, is finishing. But in the beginning, he doesn't accept it. When you read the letter, there is a progression in his understanding. He doesn't accept it in the beginning because he fights it back, which is normal. No? In the beginning, you think that this is just a little bit of bubbles and then you can just shut them up and then continue. No, these are like people who are just making trouble and then you imprison them and that's it. Like it can happen in any moment in history. But then he becomes aware that no, it's bigger, way bigger than that. And he just needs to remember what happened before him with the other popes and what happened in Vienna, what happened in the French Revolution. So he starts to understand that there are things that are happening. The old order is changing. We have a new world order, and he is the first big witness of that new world order, where people want to govern by themselves, where they reject the legitimate kings, where, in a way, if you are a little bit rooted in tradition and in the past, you have the impression that the entire world is collapsing. It's a little bit apocalyptic when you think about it. And in this apocalypse, when everything seems to disappear, turmoil, people are killed, no? There is blood shed. He can't control the situation. It seems, and I insist here, because we don't have any document that says that this is related to that, but it's difficult not to think about it. And it intrigued me for years. What intrigued me? What intrigued me is the following. Why God seems to think that the mystery of the Immaculate Conception is his answer to the new order, the new world order. You see the question? It's like pure algebra. Let me repeat it again. Why? No, God seems to say to us that his answer, of course through Mary, through the Pope, through the Immaculate Conception, through the apparitions, etc., his answer to the new world order is the mystery of the Immaculate Conception. Theologically, trust me, it's puzzling. You don't understand. What is the relationship between that and history? What is the relationship between that and the turmoil? You are free to think whatever and react the way you want, but I'm just telling you, because I'll bring more all the stronger and more elements to the case. And remember, please, that Immaculate, Mary conceived without sin. Pray for us who have recourse to thee. And then you have here the declaration of the Immaculate Conception, which happens, as you see, in his mind, 48, already suggested to him in 47, but 48 to 49. Then the file is completed and the agreement is there, and then she is declared only in 54. So you see, it takes time. The church doesn't do things like that. People might think that the church, it's fancy, no? Oh, I fancy it. No, it takes time and it's done seriously. Because it touches faith. Then you have Lourdes, the confirmation of it, but in Lourdes she says, I am the Immaculate Conception, pray, etc., nothing special. But then you have Fatima, and this is what interests us today. And in Fatima, it's not just the Immaculate Conception, it's the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So we have here a slight precision offered to us, the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So the notion of being immaculate, which is conceived without sin, remember that please. Immaculate conception, but immaculate as well, purely. I see that it's following the same line. I don't see just immaculate like pure. I think immaculate, but immaculate conception. Of course, it's not in the expression, but it's implicit in my eyes. So immaculate is still there, but now you have an addition. You have immaculate heart. Our Lady is very clear, and Lucia, no, Lucy, who received who saw Our Lady with the other two, is very clear on that. Our Lady says she wants to spread the devotion. This is Fatima, to spread the devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Again, as a theologian, I don't understand. I love Our Lady, don't get me wrong. And people who followed previous courses for me see to which extent my love and in theological love for Our Lady is there. But what is this Immaculate Heart? What is this Immaculate Heart? Yes?
Presumably the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus was already very...
Of course, the devotion to the Sacred Heart was, yes. Yeah, but let me counter that. Saint Therese herself, her sister, one of her sisters, she has many sisters, one of her sister, Marie, she was her godmother, had a great devotion to the Sacred Heart. And it is very interesting here. Saint Therese says to her one day, I don't understand the Sacred Heart the same way as you do. Because if you have a devotion, you need to understand the problem, the theological point here. A devotion is a choice by definition. A devotion is an aspect of a sentimental almost aspect in the way you pray, in the way you access the world, God's world. So you can have a devotion to the Sacred Heart, you can have a devotion to the cross, you can have a devotion to, I don't know, even saints and Padre Pio, Saint Therese, etc. You can have, it's a choice. But what is core is slightly different. A devotion you might be inclined, you might not be inclined, and it's not mandatory to everybody in general terms, even though the devotion to the Sacred Heart seems to be obviously, if it is well explained, it's mandatory. But at that time, Saint Therese says to her sister, I don't see and understand the Sacred Heart the same way. It doesn't mean she doesn't see it. She says she sees it. But I think that she says it, she develops it, that she sees the Sacred Heart as central. It's not a matter of devotion. She doesn't have, devotion, she likes the Sacred Heart, etc. No. What is inside of the Sacred Heart? You have his soul, you have his spirit, and you have his divinity. So you can't play with that. It's a little bit like St. John in the Gospel when he says that Jesus' side is opened after he dies. No, there is a spur, and then blood and water comes out. So for St. John, this is the access to heaven, the access to the divinity of Jesus. It's something very deep. So you understand the difference between devotion and core. So yes, the devotion to the Sacred Heart is there, and then the devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Fine. This is spread everywhere, what you say. But I still see it in a different way. A little bit like Saint Therese says, I see it in a different way. I see the Immaculate Heart of Mary in a different way. So let us now start, because time is flying. I gave you the context, so I'm summarizing now. I gave you the context, the difficult context of the declaration of the Immaculate Conception, and I concluded it with this strange sentence saying that it seems that God is saying to us that his answer to the difficulties, to the turmoil we are going through, the unsettled world we are in, we don't have a fixed reference. Do you understand the problem? Huh? The order disappears, so you are shaken. So you don't know, you can hold on to what that is fixed, that doesn't move like a rock and a solid rock. So it seems that God is saying, my rock is the mystery of the Immaculate Conception, and with Fatima, more precisely, the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Okay? Got the point? So, I will have to stop digging deep in history and the context and move on now to a more theological approach. So, and this as well, I hope, is interesting for you. So, from a devotional point of view, I will go to a theological point of view of the Sacred Heart, the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So, now we are more in theology. It's not difficult, it's not complicated. I just put theology in order for you to understand that I am digging deeper, and not only theology, but I will go with the Bible. Things we know, things we already, some of you already attended that, but I'm afraid I have to repeat it so you could see now better the mystery of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So what we will do right now is to try to see from a biblical perspective, from more precisely the Gospel of St. Luke, what can we learn about the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And by the way, allow me just to enter in that world by another apparition that you might not have heard of, because it is a little bit half private, this apparition. Have you heard of the priestly movement, the Marian priestly movement by Don Gobi, who died now? Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Can you just... Very, very few, yeah. Have you read what the messages of Our Lady to Don Gobi? A few, okay. So, this is just a little parenthesis, but I find it very connected to the Immaculate Heart, because it's Our Lady of Fatima who is rather talking to Don Gobi. Don Gobi is a priest, he's an Italian priest who lives who is in the 70s, receives locutions. Inner locutions. Inner locutions can happen sometimes, which is hearing a voice or understanding something. It has different forms. You can read about that in St. John of the Cross, Ascent of Mount Carmel, book 2, after chapter 10, from 10 onward. Different locutions, different types of locutions. So God can speak or appear and speak to somebody with locutions. It's not the common way, and nobody will ask you to do that or to try that. Don't play with that, please. But it can happen to some people. So you could hear a voice. And it has to go through a discernment, because you could be losing your plot and having a little bit of schizophrenia or paranoia. It's possible, no? So a little bit... Okay, so this is why... so this priest, a good, simple, humble priest, Don Gobi, started to receive, I think it's in early 73, he starts to receive messages. Our Lady's talking to him, like his mother, right? No, dear mother, she's talking to him. And she asks him to write down what this dialogue, what she says more precisely. He hesitates in the beginning, but then he starts. And through him, Our Lady creates a movement, a priestly movement. So it's a Marian movement for the priests. Lay people can join, but it is essentially for priests. The book, you can find it, but it's not easy. It's not sold anywhere. You have to ask from the different places where they send it, okay? The different centers of the Marian movement. This movement will develop a lot. Don Gobi will have more and more priests joining from all different countries. In the in books, you have different pictures of him traveling everywhere, and hundreds of priests around him, and sometimes bishops, etc., who are praying with him, etc. So, the movement hasn't been officially approved by Rome, but never rejected either. So you have even a picture of Don Gobi meeting John Paul II. Did John Paul II know about it? I guess yes, but it's none of our business. Why I'm telling you this? Because there is something, this is years ago, in the late 80s, I was reading in that book, the book that has all the messages, no? It's a blue book. I'll bring one after, during the break. In the messages, there is something very strange to me as a theologian and specialized in spiritual life. Mary says in her messages something along, of course, this is Fatima's devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. She says that the church is about to go through very difficult moments, so we are in the beginning of the 70s. Well, if you lived in this time, you know that, yes, the church went through horrible moments in 70s and 80s, but rather end of 60s, plenty in the 70s and continued in the 80s. So she says that, but then she adds saying, my heart will be the only refuge, the only safe haven. And trust me, when I read that, I was puzzled. Why? Because she says, you have to enter in my heart. Please, Mary, explain to me how 183 centimeters can enter in 7 centimeters. I don't understand. How can I enter in Mary's heart? It looks silly maybe to you, but I couldn't understand how devotionally, how can I love her and even imagine, trust me, I know my stuff in spiritual life. So I know visualization, imagination, and all this, how it works, etc. But still, I struggle to find my 183 centimeters, 76 kilos, sorry, it's not in pounds or in inches, I don't know the equivalent, to enter in that little room, her heart. I want to be in her heart, but I can't see it, I can't do it, I don't know how to do it. Okay? So this is a little parenthesis to show you that there are other messages, and I won't deal with that because there are other apparitions, and like Medjugorje, etc., but I don't want to go there today. I just want to remain with that equation. How can we find, now I'm using a little bit that message, no, from Our Lady to Don Gobi, no? How can we then enter in the Immaculate Heart of Mary? How can we find in the Immaculate Heart of Mary the safe haven? You see? Remember, historically, we are going up and down, turmoil, the old order is going, disappearing, we feel shaken, yes or not, in this case. The Pope feels shaken. He says the church could collapse. Of course, the church will never collapse, but you feel, humanly speaking, the church is totally threatened. His prime minister was killed, that he could die. Of course, the church will continue after his death, and they will elect another pope, etc. But you understand how you feel that you don't have a space to breathe, because there is a lot of pressure, and you need to read his letters. He's very fierce against the revolutionaries. He's not very gentle with them, no? Never, of course, losing temper or using bad words. Of course, the Pope will never do that. But you understand what I mean? He's very, very strong in his statements that this is bad behavior and this, and he analyzes the situation. He doesn't go superficially with that. He brings the causes to the liberalism, to communism and socialism, which now we know about them. But at that time they were starting communism, socialism. He mentions in his letters. Karl Marx was where at that time? Russia. Fatima, Russia. You see? So you can't, you need all that to understand it deeper, Fatima. So now, how can I have a devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary? How can I understand properly that? And how can I enter in that safe haven? Because we live in a world where everything is moving. So we want something that is stable. We want something that is bringing us peace, inner peace, solid life. You can be in a world where everything is moving, but inside of you, you are rock solid. Not because you are rock solid, but because God is giving you that rock. And that rock seems to be the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Okay? So that's the gist. Okay? So now, from now on, till sometime in the afternoon, we will be digging deeper from the Bible, which I think is very interesting here, from the Gospel of St. Luke, information about Mary's heart, Mary's Immaculate Heart. Toward the end of the day, around 4, if you don't mind, as promised in the leaflet, we will be praying the Rosary, 5 mysteries, and we will be, you can join, you don't have to do it, but we can join. I will just say a very short consecration to Our Lady, if you want to join me saying it, otherwise it's fine. I mean, you can do it, or you have done it already, you don't want to repeat it, that's fine. And then we will conclude at 4:30. So, from now on, we will be with St. Luke. So, if you don't mind, if you have your Bible, that's fine. If you don't have it, that's fine as well. You just listen, because these are texts that we all know. We all know these texts, but we will try to now discover how St. Luke is in fact presenting us a very deep theology of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. A very deep theology of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. You can have some help from St. John as well, but I'll be focusing essentially on St. Luke. So you can consider that the Gospel of St. Luke is the Gospel of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Surprise, no? So it's my duty now to show you at least the main elements, so you'd come out not only convinced, which is not enough, but as well, now the Gospel has a different taste for you, because you have it at home, you can read it, and now find different things in it. So, without further ado, let us start for maybe 10 minutes or so with the first part of the Gospel of St. Luke, and then continue till roughly 1-ish o'clock. So, strange statement, audacious statement. The Gospel of St. Luke is the Gospel of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Let us see. The Gospel of St. Luke starts with 2 annunciations. Of course, people who have attended other courses from me already know that, but it doesn't harm to listen to it again, because you always learn something new. In the beginning of the Gospel of St. Luke, you have 2 annunciations, which I consider like 2 doors, 2 journeys, 2 ways to deal with God. One is the way he wants us to go through, and it will be the way of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And the other one seems to be good, but deeply, deeply, it's not functioning properly. So let us see. In the beginning of the Gospel of St. Luke, we have the first annunciation is done to Zechariah. The second one, which is in verse 26, is to Our Lady. Yes or no? But before starting the Gospel, I would like to stop at the 4 first verses of the Gospel, because they give us some important clues about our research. In his introduction, St. Luke says that he has read other presentations of the Gospel. We reckon it's probably either Matthew or Mark. And maybe other versions as well, we don't know. But when he says that, he adds saying, but I would like to add something more. What he will add, the elements that he is about to add, touch at least on 2 aspects. One is the accuracy. He says, I'm bringing accuracy. akribeia. I will read the text and show it to you, but I'm just preparing the reading. And the second point, which comes first in the text, all the things about what to be the servant or the minister of the word. Two elements he is bringing, compared to St. Matthew and St. Mark. So St. Luke is not saying St. Mark and St. Matthew are wrong, but he says, I am bringing two elements. Accuracy, but accuracy in what? In how to become servants of the word. So let me read it. Inasmuch, it's a translation, of course, it's not the original, it's in English. So remember that we have in front of us translations. Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things which have been accomplished among us, so he's saying others compiled, Matthew, Mark, and others. Just as they were delivered to us by those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. The correct verb should be became ministers of the word. So he's dealing with the fact that some people are giving us the account and they became one day servants of the word. This point is important. It's not always underlined by the commentators. It seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely. This is a translation, but the original is on the footnote in my translation, and it puts accurately. The note A in my Bible here, this one, has accurately, which is in Greek akribeia, which is precision. Think of a watch made in any country and a watch made in Switzerland. What do you feel? I don't have any shares with the Swiss watchmakers, but you see what I'm trying to say? You know that the Swiss has a reputation that if it is written Swiss made, you know that it will work, yes or not? Japanese as well, but now let us stick to the Swiss, okay? So you know that the Swiss work is perfect, no discussion. Otherwise the watch will not be sold. So let us consider that our dear friend St. Luke is the Swiss maker of the gospel. He brings us accuracy, a certain quality of precision that he thinks the others don't have. You are not wrong by not saying certain things, but you are right in adding clarity on certain things. So he's not saying that the other gospels are not correct, are not inspired by God. No, they are, absolutely. You see? So, it seemed good to me also, having followed all things with accuracy or accurately, for some time past, to write an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus. Theophilus is the gentleman who he's talking and writing to, that you may know the truth concerning the things of which you have been informed. There is a tendency, a risk, and this is a little parenthesis important for us. There is a tendency, when we read the introduction, to jump immediately into conclusion and say what? Luke acts as a historian. He put things orderly, and because he didn't find that order, and he puts all the elements. While before, the few bits were lacking. That's not true at all. This is a projection coming from our personal formation in history of this, history of that. It's a bit of a German tendency we have to study the history of, but never study the thing itself. Study how it developed, etc. St. Luke is not presenting history, first and foremost. He's presenting historical facts, but he's putting them in a way that follows his reasoning. And they are not, and we know it, if you look clearly with St. Luke's order, doesn't fit with even a chronological order. So he's not doing history as we do. And the sad tendency is that when you read that, you say, okay, what I will have here in Luke is just good account, historical account. Nothing to do with that. He has in his mind to show us how the Immaculate Heart of Mary is the safe haven and the only way to be saved. She's very audacious when she says that to Don Gobi. Okay? The only way to be saved is to be in my heart. It's like, how? Okay? So please keep in mind accuracy and to become servant of the word. How? First apparition is to Zechariah. I'm afraid I'll have to stop. Maybe I stop here before I start the apparitions, otherwise, the vision. Let us have 5 minutes, just shake a little bit, not too much. Grab a cup of tea and come back.